Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Callie and I will finally be doing my January wrap up. It's taken me a little bit to get into this because I read so much in January. I ended up having so much free time. I'm gonna go through all my stats pretty quickly. I'm still using the Always Fully Booked reading tracker. I love this company and I love these. They do everything that I want. So I read a total of 31 books in the month of January with a total page count of 11,243. And hours listened was 12 hours and 4 minutes. I ended up DNFing 8 books and I did 2 rereads, which I will go through in my entire stack that I actually have 2 stacks. For method of reading, 21 were physical books, 9 were ebooks, and I did 1 audiobook. And then for genres, I had 18 fantasy books, 9 romances, 3 thrillers, and 1 sci-fi. So definitely up to a great start for the year. Not sure if I can keep up that cadence for the entire year. I have already had like a little bit of a reading slump, which was like a day. But I still kind of read. That makes no sense, but it does. So I'm gonna go through every single book that I read with the ratings. Since there are so many, I'm not gonna go into too much detail. Maybe a sentence here or there. So I started off 2023 with The Ones We Burn by Rebecca Mix. This is a sapphic Viking story, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. Next, I read Cursed by Marissa Meyer. This is the sequel to Gilded, which is a very fantastical retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, and I also gave this 4 stars. Up next was my first reread of the entire month, and that was A Song of Wraith and Ruin by Roseanne Brown. I picked this up because Roseanne Brown at the time was going to be attending a Polycon. She is no longer, but I still wanted to reread this so that I could read book 2, which is A Psalm of Storms and Silence. I ended up giving A Song of Wraith and Ruin 4 stars and A Psalm of Storms and Silence also 4 stars. So for the duology as a whole, 4 stars. Great duology, great African lore, and phenomenal magic system. Up next, I read A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Williamson. And I ended up giving this 4 stars. This is a creepy, scared of things in the dark thriller. Next, I read Small Favors by Erin A. Craig. This was another weird thriller things of being afraid in the dark. I gave this 3 stars and ended up unhauling it because it was just a weird story. Next, I read A Queen Comes to Power by Chloe C. Penaranda. This is book 2 in her Air Comes to Rise series, which I have devoured. And I ended up giving this sequel 4 stars because the pining, great fae, human, impending doom type of setting, fantastic magic system, and overall great time. Next, I read The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I gave this 2.5 stars, and that was being generous. I hated this book so much, which is why I don't have my copy anymore. This is about a final girls that you see in all the horror movies, and they form a support group and then start dying one by one. It was awful. I hated this book. Up next, I read Akarnae by Lynette Noni. This is a portal story, essentially. A girl walks through a portal, finds new magical land, and finds out she has powers and goes to the magical school. It's fantastic. I loved this, and I love Lynette Noni. I found her through The Prison Healer. Love that series, so I wanted to go to one of her backlisted books. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars, and I really see the potential of this story. I will be continuing the series. Up next, I have The Cold Is in Her Bones by Peternelle van Arsdale. This is a weird Medusa-y story meets Little House on the Prairie. Weird thriller. It wasn't long enough in my opinion, and it was really weird. I am ending up unhauling this because I gave it 3 stars. And it made me uncomfy. Next, I have Well Traveled by Deluca. I needed some romance to break up a ton of the fantasy that I was reading, and this is book 4 in the Renaissance romance series. I really liked this. It's not my favorite in the entire series, but I did give it 4 stars. Next, I have A Throne from the Ashes by Chloe C. Penaranda. See, I flew through these ebooks. This is book 3 in her Air Comes to Rise series, and by this point, I was fully invested in the story. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is where our story gets A, spicy, and B, cooking. Up next, I have The June Boys by Court Stevens. This is a YA thriller about boys who are kidnapped every year in June, and then they are returned seemingly harmless. But when one ends up dead, and our main character's cousin is one of the missing, she starts her own investigation. And it's weird. It's a very strange way to go about a thriller. It was fine. I give this 3.5 stars, but it's not something where I would read it again, so I am unhauling this. Next, I have Heart on Fire by Amanda Bouchet. This is book 3 in her Kingmaker series, and Amanda Bouchet is a Napoleon author, so I've been reading these for the past couple of months, and I really enjoy the series. They're really fun. This being the 3rd book, we had a lot of twists and turns, very action-packed, very Greek mythology inspired, and I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Up next, I ended up reading a novella that I didn't know existed until Sarah told me about it, and she let me borrow her copy, and that is Emperor of Evening Stars by Laura Thalassa. This is a short story in the male main character's point of view from the Rhapsodic series. This is in Desmond's point of view, and I never knew I needed that until I read this novella. I loved it. I will be getting my own copy because I love Desmond just so much. I ended up giving the novella 4 stars. Next, again, another Chloe C. Penaranda book. I read A Clash of Three Courts by Chloe C. Penaranda. She is a Napoleon author, which is why I've been reading her books, and I just am wholly invested. I really like this because it's not quite a spin-off, but books 1 through 3 we're following Faith, and in this one we're following Nick and Toria, and I really loved that switch. So I gave this 4.5 stars. Up next, I had my December Fairy Loot, which was Cruel Illusions by Margie Fuston. This is a dark circus act with magic and vampires. I gave this 3 stars. It was okay. I was bored and it did not need to be this long. I just didn't care for the main character. She was very whiny and very woe is me, and I was real tired of her shit. So I am unhauling that one. Next, I have Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This is her debut into YA. This is a YA rom-com, and it was exactly that. It was an adorable British scholar rivals competing in the wilderness together. It's cute. It was short, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. I love Talia Hibbert's writing, and I will continue to pick up whatever she writes. Next, I picked up Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alstead. I love this series. This is a middle grade spy kids with magic story. I adored book 1. Book 2 was a little rougher for me. I still really liked our story. I still love Amari as our main character. I just feel like things constantly go bad for no reason, and it's a lot of that everything feels unfair, and I understand why it's happening, but it got a little repetitive in that aspect. Overall, I still love Amari and the world, so I ended up giving this 4 stars. Next, I picked up The Risk by Elle Kennedy. This is book 2 in the Briar U series, which is a spin-off of the Off Campus series, and this follows Brenna, who is the daughter of the coach of the hockey team at Briar U, and she starts to fall for a hockey player at Harvard, which is their biggest rival. This was a really fun enemies/rivals to lovers, plus it dealt with a lot of toxic relationships and how to get out of those. And I thought that was a really cool additive to this story. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Up next, I read the entire Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. And I read it just kind of intermixed each book. There are 5 books in total, all under about 200 pages. This entire series, since I read each book one by one, they ranged from 4 to 5 stars. As a whole, I would give this series 5 stars. It's fantastic. It is a serial killer romance where a serial killer falls for the FBI agent hunting her. And yep, the serial killer is the girl instead of the guy. And it is It is wild. It is way more about the relationship and the murders than it is about the romance. And I love that. I will say, before you even look at this book, check the trigger warnings because they are intense. Next, I have Steel Striker by Marie Lu. This is the second book in the Sky Hunter duology. I really like this. It is very apocalyptic and creepy and scary, while being also like dealing with biomechanics and all of those kinds of aspects. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I don't think it was quite as strong as it could have been for a second book in a duology. Next, I have Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. This was just a really cute sapphic Dungeons and Dragons story where Orc is tired of fighting on campaigns and decides to open a coffee shop in the middle of a random town. That's it. It was adorable. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Next, I read one of my most anticipated books for this year, The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is a spin-off of the Cruel Prince series, but instead we're following an adult oak. And we're also following a fae girl who has been trapped in the human realm, or a fae queen who has been trapped in the human realm. And I really liked this. It wasn't as strong as The Cruel Prince, but I see its potential, and I love Holly Black's storytelling. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Next, I picked up Skin Deep by Kimberly Kincaid. This is one of the books I ended up getting at a Polycon last year, and she will be at a Polycon again this year, so I wanted to grab it. This is a firefighter meets detective romance where they get swept up in a case together when he finds damning evidence at a fire. And they are reluctant to work together because they don't trust each other, but naturally they do. I really like this. I gave it 4.5 stars because the mystery was just as intriguing as the romance. I was rooting for both the entire time. It was just a fun time the entire ride. Next, I picked up my second reread, and that is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I'm doing a full Sarah J. Maas reread this year. I'm doing it in publication order this year. So obviously you start with Throne of Glass, and I love doing this reread. I gave it 5 stars. I always give it 5 stars. I think this is my 3rd or 4th time reading this book. I miss actually reading it because this is the first time I've actually reread it with the physical book. My other 2 rereads were through the audiobooks. So I just love being able to tab and actually see some of the connections and some of the lines that will come into play later in the entire series. But very excited to be rereading this. And the last book that I read in January was Sword from the Embers by Chloe C. Penaranda. I am now fully caught up on the Air Comes to Rise series. I downloaded this the day it came out in January, and I was a mess. I gave this 5 stars. I am terrified that we don't have a name or a date for the next books. I think there's like 2 more books in this series. And I will be having words with her when I see her at a Polycon. But I'm obsessed with this series. It gives me the exact same feels as Throne of Glass, and I am so invested it's not even funny. And those are all the books that I read in January. I'm hoping this sets a really good tone for the rest of 2023 and my reading goals. According to Goodreads, I am very, very ahead, which I'm excited about. But that's going to be it for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We post every Wednesday and Friday with the occasional Sunday, and I'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!